everybody. Melissa here with FMO Media. Today, we are actually joined by Yousuf from Buckingham Mortgage and Stephanie from Exit Realty Homestead for our podcast today. So we're actually going to be talking about how they got into the industry, the current market conditions, and where the market's going. So thank you so much for collaborating and joining us today. It's good to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Stephanie from New Jersey, tell us a little bit about your real estate company and what you do and how you provide a service to people that are looking for homes or selling homes.
I am actually the broker here at Exit Homestead Realty, and Exit is a franchise. So my office has been in New Jersey, an Exit office since 2015. I've been in the real estate business, though, for 36 years. I've been a broker since 2003. So it's been quite some time, and it's actually a very enjoyable, rewarding profession for me. I truly, truly enjoy it. The nice feature about Exit is we have not only the capabilities of helping people buy and sell real estate, but we have great opportunities for agents to help them, accelerate in the business and to also add another level of and source of income for them in our sponsorship and residual income that our formula provides.
What a great company to work with and be a part of as well. And that longevity, that's incredible.
Yeah, it doesn't seem real some days.
Like it was just yesterday.
But it feels like.
So Yousuf, tell us a little bit about, so you're in the mortgage industry. Tell us a little bit about how you started your company and a little bit about your company now.
Yeah, so Buckingham Mortgage actually was it's a family company. My dad started Buckingham Mortgage in 1994. And he was in the industry for 10 years before he started that company. I've been in the mortgage industry since I was a teenager, helping with filing, helping the processors do random, projects, whether sometimes it's even just getting the coffee, little things like that. That's how I started. But then in 2013, I took over and we've been expanding. Now we're in 14 different states, and New Jersey being one of them. So it's been a good journey, learning the industry in and out, and seeing all the expansion. So it's been great. You
have a longevity too, where from the filing cabinets to the technology that's available today, I'm sure is incomparable.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring into the industry, was that energy, that youthful energy, making sure that everything was up to date, modernized, so that the client can take advantage of that. So whether it's the application or the programs that we run here, it's just we want to make sure that the process is as easy as possible for the client.
I'd like to hear both perspectives from you guys. How do real estate and mortgage companies collaborate? And I'll preface this with I think a lot of times, most people will go onto the Z word or whatever, onto Google or wherever else, and they'll say, I want this house. And they'll call whoever's on that listing and they'll kind of just say, all right, cool. How do I get there? And then sometimes maybe it's not available or they don't qualify. And then they start learning really the entire world of what it takes to buy a home. So how do mortgage and real estate companies collaborate to make it as easy as possible from the client? I don't know who wants to take this question, but maybe ladies first. Maybe I'll let you.
Thanks. Actually, if you think about it, one can't do without the other, right? So in those circumstances, there's financing involved in purchasing a property. So one truly can't do without the other. So I know on our perspective, one of the very first questions we ask all the time is, are you working with a lender? Do you already have a mortgage company? How did you get to me? Because like you just indicated, sometimes it's from sources online where there could be a connection because we're all marketing and doing the different platforms. So you want to be true to that business structure, right? So it's important to ask those questions, and we ask those questions all the time. But I will tell you, one of the best things that can ever happen for a client, and we're all looking out for the best interests of our clients, is for the real estate agent and the mortgage lender to communicate, right? It's so important to have open communication so everybody's on the same page and you can provide the best service for your client, because after all, that's what we're all here to do. So, I mean, I think it's a really important, partnership, truthfully. There's like the very first sentence I said in regards to it is one can't do without the other.
To piggyback off of that, the most important thing, like Stephanie said, was communication. It's a process, and majority of the times there is a time frame in which we're trying to get something done. So every single day is very important, and we don't want to lose a single day. And we've noticed that with other companies outside, or clients' stories that, oh, we wasted a day here or there because someone just didn't pick up a phone call and didn't give us an update. So that's where communication comes into play, in my opinion, being able to get information and give information in a timely fashion so that everybody can react accordingly.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard some not so great stories of people just trying to get into a home, and communication. I'm sure technology helps a lot with that communication these days, but having that initial partnership is really important, and knowing how somebody else works and what's the fastest way to get some of that. Now,
I'm still old school, so phone calls for me is the best thing. Pick up a phone call. Emails can go unread because some people like myself, I get 100 emails a day and maybe 80% of it is junk mail. And so you might just miss one single email, and that one email might be very important. So I'm of the mindset, make a phone call, even if it's not something you want to tell. If you have to, make sure you get it done that day.
You really get so much more done by a phone call. You really do.
Much more. Because when you're on a phone call, then all of a sudden you get the answer, and there might be a secondary question. And that secondary question you wouldn't have thought about in the email.
Nope. Or you thought about it 3 days later and you respond to it in the email chain 3 days later. Absolutely.
And one of the most important things I do want to add to that too is, when we're talking to and first communicating with a potential buyer, it's really important for us, or for, the realtors in my office too, of course, to know, is that buyer already spoken to someone, and are they pre-approved and pre-qualified? Because that's another thing, like we're always talking about offering the best service possible to our clients. Well, if your client hasn't been pre-approved or pre-qualified and you're out showing them properties, that they cannot afford, or that they could afford more depending on the circumstances, and they could find something even better that they would like, that's not doing what's best for them either. So like I said, it's just really important that there's an open line of communication always. And, it's one of the first questions we ask, because we know that there needs to be somebody there before us.
And so talking a little bit about that affordability, Yousuf, tell us some of the solutions that maybe people aren't aware of or don't know as much about when they're trying to get into a home, and what are their benefits of working with a company like yours?
Biggest thing is working with a broker versus a bank is we work with roughly 30 different, let's call them banks or investors. So that gives us the opportunity to open up to different programs. So when someone might not qualify under a conventional loan, we have other programs to fit them into a loan to make sure that they can still get into the home that they want. And so we have all these programs that we can make sure that the borrower fits into what they deserve. So that's the broker side of things. Now, one thing I've noticed is a lot of people don't realize how many different programs there are, right? So there's also there's a fear, I would say, of asking questions. It's a lot of assuming, oh, I can't afford this home. And that's it. And then someone will say, and a lot of the times it's the realtor on their behalf saying, did you speak to anybody? Because just want to make sure that you've spoken to a professional before you've just assumed that. And a majority of the times they say, no, I just, I've run some figures myself and I just assumed I won't be able to qualify. So I never reached out. So I think it's the fear of just asking simple questions.
It might also be the fear of rejection, right? Where they're like, I don't want to get an actual no from someone.
Yeah, that's true.
I just thought about that. I'm like, that might be a real, I think that is a real thought that goes through people's heads when they're just maybe not fully educated, because how could you be? There's so much time that goes into studying all those different aspects. So that's huge. That's huge. Have you run into people like that?
Several times. I'm sorry. What I wanted to say is there are several times, like I know people come to us and they'll say, well, my credit score is, we don't even ask, they'll tell us a credit score. And there are people like many times that are doubting they could even qualify. And we have to go back and say, oh, no, you're absolutely in the category that you can qualify based on your score, if that's actually your score at this point. But you're right. The general public, some of them don't understand all the fundamentals behind qualifications for a loan, because today there are like so many different things. Like years ago, when I'm talking years ago in the 80s, the interest rates were in double digits. So financing became very creative back that day too, right? Today, our rates are still really great. So there's so much opportunity out there that, people just need to become more educated, pick up a phone, make some phone calls and find out what's there.
Speaking of education, I know there's a portion of education that we need to give to clients. So I'm going to ask you each both to pick one, the biggest common myth that you hear people repeat over and over again, or maybe lately, and how you can kind of dispel or disbar that myth a little bit. So what is one common myth in your industry, and what would you like to educate people on about that?
I think, again, it might have been just briefly brought up here slightly with the shift in the change in the market, meaning that the interest rates have gone up since, last year, this time. These interest rates today are still really good. So there is a lot of available financing out there. We're not going to see another, I still don't even believe people use the word back in the day, the bubble and the burst, because, guidelines for financing are so much different today as well. Values on property and equity in homes today are so much different than then as well. So I think that that's what it is. A lot of people immediately, when they start seeing some sort of change, and our recent change was an increase in the interest rates, they start to become a little apprehensive. And there's really no reason to be apprehensive because we are still in a market that there is a lot lot of opportunity.
And I don't know if Stephanie stole your myth, Yousuf.
Completely
you got to come up with
myth.
Another one.
Completely stole my myth. That was obviously, right when I said to you first, I was like, I have a feeling because she just brought it up. That's what it's going to be. And it was. But you know what? It's very accurate. And especially right now. Now I'll pick a second one, but I do want to piggyback off of that really quickly. There are a lot of people that are just worried, with everything that's going on in the market. And the rates being high, I think people just get scared. They got very used to the rates being in the 2s and 3s. Mm-hmm. So to see it double 6, 7, 8%, there was a lot of fear. And I think that it took some time for people to understand that this isn't the same situation as 2008. The reason the market crashed in 2008 was completely different than the reason the rates are going up now. And we're noticing that with the lack of people selling, the inventory still being low because people were actually qualified this time around for the loans that they were getting. So that's why we're seeing that everyone is still in the homes. They're not foreclosing. And we're starting to see a little bit of the rates come down. And I think that the bidding will soon, it will start up again, which is good for everybody. Now, my myth that I also would like to bring up, kind of piggyback off of what I said earlier, was the credit score. A lot of people have this idea that they know what their credit score is because they go to freecreditkarma.com or this credit score on their phone. And, in the mortgage industry, when we pull a credit, we do a tri-merge credit pull. That means we're pulling one credit from each of the 3 bureaus. And we tell everybody this from the get-go. Before we're even talking about it, where did you get your credit score from? Because when we pull it, it will be different. When a mortgage company pulls it, it's the strictest out of anybody else. When you go to buy a car, it's going to be a different score than when we pull it. So there's a little bit of education along the way. That way everybody understands how the industry works, how the process works. But that little bit of a rude awakening, I'll say, is sometimes people will say, I have a credit score. It's great. It's great. So don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Like, I know I have a good credit score. That's hard to deal with because you don't want to insult a client. But at the same time, you want to educate that maybe it's not what you think it is. So there's a balance that we have to always play with.
Well, number one, you're both leaders in your industry, right? Yousuf, you came up and your father was the leader of the company and you've taken over. And you have other mortgage loan officers that work with you that are part of your team. And Stephanie, you've done an incredible job over in New Jersey and been able to build up a huge team of real estate agents. And so I want to know one or two leadership tidbits or advice, like how does one do that? At some point, it crosses over from you doing all of the work to then now teaching somebody else. And that's got to be rewarding too, right, Stephanie?
It is rewarding. It's also challenging. So I just recently was asked, what do you find in leadership as being a challenge for you? And in the beginning, the challenge was, of course, I love to build leaders in my office. I love to see them grow in the industry and in my office as well, right? But when in the beginning, it was like, okay, I got them to this level. And then before you know it, they went to this level. So then I had to go back to find somebody at this level. Like you kind of felt like you were always, right, building and moving and grooving, which is a great thing. But you had to get it to become almost like systematic, right? Or, to just have like a plan in place. So, I think that's like probably one of the trickiest parts about it. But in regards to like leadership, the first thing that I always tell everybody is you have to be a really good communicator. You have to be a listener. You have to find what that person is that you're working with and trying to help grow as well, what they do best and help them accelerate and stay in their lane, right? Stay in their lane and guide them and help them get from, point A to point B, because everybody benefits. And when you have people in your office growing and you're growing leaders in your office as well, your culture and the camaraderie is just a synergy that you can't even explain. You walk in the room and you can feel it. You just know it's there. So, I think that what I do to me is the most rewarding job I could ever ask for, because you don't only get to work and help and build your agents and work in your community, but you get to do better and like serve the community that you work with as well, right? So, and it's just a great field and a great way to always like keep doing things, but giving back too. So you're giving back in regards to your communities, your time and your agents. And it's just a wonderful blend.
That's awesome. It's not just finding someone a home or moving them from home to home. It's creating a home within your own office, right?
It's that too. But when you are dealing with your clients, for most people, it could be the biggest financial investment they make in their life. We hear that all the time, right? And you do become part of their circle. Your clients become, friends and, family to you most of the time. The longevity of like, especially myself, I now see, for a while, I used to always like smile when one of my clients' kids would call me and say, I'm ready to buy a house. Well, now I have some of my original clients' grandchildren calling me. I'm ready to buy a house.
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's so cool though. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I remember seeing their birth announcements and I'm like, wow, this is really goes to show you how rewarding really this could be. And our business is so important, what we do, because I say it to my gang here, my exit family all the time. We build relationships. We create new ones. We nurture existing ones. We're constantly building relationships. So, and when you do that, it's almost impossible not to enjoy and love what you do.
Yousuf, what would you say are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you look for in a leader or when you're building leadership in your office as well?
I think it's recognizing the different personalities that we have. So as you continue to grow, you bring people on board, you have to nurture each personality differently, right? You don't want to put them all in a single box and say, okay, do this, do what I've done, and you'll be successful. Now, you can say that, but you also want to recognize that everyone responds differently. Everybody has their own attitude and energy. And when you're able to notice that difference and really tailor your education towards them and help them grow personally in their own way, I think that's the most rewarding thing, is knowing that we don't just put everybody together and say, okay, do this 1 through 3, and that's the only steps. It's individual. Let me sit down with you one-on-one. And when you get to know that person and know what their goals are and know what they're trying to do for their community, and you help them along the way, that's really rewarding.
So that being said, I'm going to ask you guys a little bit of a story time type of question. So the question is, what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? But I love stories. So I don't know if you can go biggest failure or maybe a recent success, but I'd love to hear a story about maybe how you helped someone or a time that you learned a lesson from one of these scenarios or situations. So I don't know who wants to take this first, but.
Well, I can do biggest failure first because I had one a few years ago, and that was a learning experience. And so I have a friend who's a well-known realtor in the DC area. He referred me a loan, he said, let's do some business together. And everything was going really well. The lender that we were using decided that, there's a certain document condition, we'll call it, that is required from the borrower. Mm-hmm. And there's no way around it. Now, we questioned the lender naturally because we didn't think that it was necessary. And they said, no, 100%, this is not moving forward. So we went to the borrower and we said, hey, listen, unfortunately, we need this document, this condition. And they were not happy. We knew they were not going to be happy with it. That's why we fought originally. They said, this is absolutely unnecessary, absurd. There's no way I'm going to provide this. So it turned out then in the next few days, they ended up going to another mortgage company and they got it done without the document, right? And so that was one of the biggest fails I've ever had, because I knew that we should have fought harder. But the lender was just so adamant, and it was really disappointing because we did everything. We worked on that file for so long, and for sometimes it's out of our control. And so we have to apologize and we have to do this and that and to make sure everything goes over okay. But that's the one that really haunts me to this day. And that was about 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I still remember that feeling because the client's not happy. We pride ourselves on quality service. We tell our clients we're available 24/7. Literally, I've taken phone calls at 11:30 at night on Sundays. So not being able to come through for a client it still eats at me. So I still tell that story to all my loan officers that come through the door. Sometimes things are out of your hand, but you have to still pick up the phone call, let people know. Like, I could have hidden. I wanted to. I really was so embarrassed. I wanted to just curl up in a ball and just, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't know what to do, but no, you have to move forward. And so then later, a year or two later, I actually ran into that client. We had a laugh about it. We understood, but it still drives me nuts to this day.
At least you got some closure when you ran into them a little bit. But what a feeling to remember and to learn from. And I know it may feel like it haunts you, but I'm sure it also motivates you and whoever you tell that story to. I hope it motivates everybody. I truly I try and share that urgency and that passion that I have. And
I just hope that everybody recognizes that, some things are out of your hand, but you still have to do everything the right way.
And so how about you, Stephanie? You want to go failure or success?
That's a good question. I will tell you, I think we all have, probably a list of failures because we wouldn't be better if we didn't, right? Like you learn from those failures, 100%, right? So like, this isn't necessarily in a sense, it's a failure. It's something that I wish I would have done sooner. I wish I would have branched out and started my own brokerage sooner than later, because I feel like the last 7 years, once I started my own brokerage, I was with another brokerage prior, but I wasn't the sole broker owner. Now I am. And I just feel like since this 7 years, I have been able to grow so much, not just myself, but so many people around me. And it's made such a difference. And that's one of the things I wouldn't say necessarily it's a failure, because Lord knows we all learn from everything, right? And I had some great and amazing experiences when I first became a broker too, of course. But, you just look at it and you say, I had a different pace, right? A different pace then. And now I can kind of like set my own pace. And everybody always tells me my pace is like full speed ahead. That's what they always say, especially my admin. Anyway, yeah. But it's all good. And I do want to share something with you that to me is like one of the biggest successes. Of course, like when you do start out an office, I had an agent back several years ago now who was a little like, I guess they were lacking a little bit in the self-confidence, right? A little bit of self-confidence issue. And I immediately knew that they were amazing. Like I could just tell, like you were saying, you learn how people's personalities are and you learn the difference in people, right? And how you should communicate with them, right? So I just knew right away that this person had such amazing potential and that it was already inside. They just didn't know it, right? So I guess a year after they had started in our office, they had started really picking up, producing and getting out there. And I could tell they were much more comfortable communicating with people and just socializing and being part of the group. And that year they happened to get an award at our yearly company awards event. And they came up to me and they hugged me and they said, Stephanie, thank you for changing my life. And I lost it because I thought to myself, I didn't change your life. You changed your life, right? So to me, that was a huge success because I helped her find her lane. And trust me, she's all over the place right now. She's doing.
That's wonderful. That's a great story.
And she's just doing some amazing things. So that was like a huge success for me. People will right away, they'll expect you to say, oh yeah, it was when you sold that, giant complex building or wait, no, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing. That's not what it's about.
That is exactly. That's not what it's about. This is what it's about. The people, whether it's your clients or the people that you're leading in your offices. That's why I wanted to ask a little bit about that, because I know you're both, leading other people and growing that. So that's huge.
Another one I have to just share with you real quick is I had a client who was a single mom, and she decided that she was going to buy her house on her own. And she was really putting everything she had to purchase this house. This was her independence. She was proving to herself, no one else, but to herself, that she could do it. So I had helped her all along the way. We took time. We found what she needed. We did all the, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. The day of closing, she brought her mom and dad and her children to the settlement table to watch her sign the papers. And they literally all sat there to watch her sign the papers, and everybody left there in tears, but tears of joy. So it was so nice to see that she brought her entire family to share in her accomplishments, and that's something every year, we try to make sure that we recognize, different things that are happening in people's lives, of course. And I get a message from her every year on the day she bought her house. And she said, I'll never forget it. She sends me a message before I can send her one.
That's so cool. I actually read an interesting statistic that it was like, I think 80% of people don't remember who their real estate agent was a year after they buy their home, which is insane because some of these stories really do stick with you, right? I don't know if you have one that doesn't haunt you, Yousuf. You have a win or something that you're really proud of, maybe even a loan officer that you'd like to share with us too?
Yeah. I mean, as we've been growing, we've been hiring people out of the different industries. And we've actually, two of our younger loan officers who were in the industry for 3-4 years, struggling. Kind of like what Stephanie said, we saw the potential in them. So when we brought them on board, we nurtured them. And it was just kind of like, we see it in you. You need to see it in yourself. And it was kind of just that little bit of support that they kind of saw from us that made them feel more confident in themselves. And in the last year or two, it's just completely flourished. Like being comfortable talking to clients, talking to realtors, where that was maybe their hardest part, was just not feeling comfortable with themselves. But now being outgoing and confident enough to talk to anybody. And that's been really rewarding to see their growth and maturation in this industry.
And I'm sure we've all had that where you have someone that believes in you until you believe in yourself, so to speak. And then you can kind of run with that. Oh.
We also sponsored our 28th person over the last 30 years. My dad was very adamant on keeping that family culture. So when we've found people that we felt deserved it, so we just recently sponsored our 28th. And so we're really happy about that. We had a whole party, the whole office got together. So that was also something that was very rewarding.
That's really cool. That's so cool. So is it one a year or?
It's not one a year. I mean, in a few years we had done a couple, but this is our 28th. So
congratulations. And
thank you.
Congratulations to you both. I'm so excited. I feel blessed to kind of get to know you guys and be a part of this podcast and be a small part of your journey. And of course, I want to thank you both for being on today and taking the time. We really appreciate anyone that's tuning in. We hope you learned a lot, from experience to leadership to some myths that can be dispelled. So we appreciate anyone tuning in. We'll catch you all on the next podcast. So bye for now.